We do have the Supreme Court fast-tracking the elimination of a black majority district in Louisiana. That's pretty cool. Apparently, they're delaying the primary to redraw the map. They're not just delaying the primary. The governor of Louisiana is tossing out an ongoing vote in order to redraw the maps. Like tens of thousands of people voted in local elections, and he's just throwing them in the trash so that he can really quickly get out this new Louisiana congressional map that has one less black district. No commentary on this one.
Welcome back. The nationwide redistricting battle is escalating. Protests outside of Alabama's State House and a heated exchange between Supreme Court justices. The High Court on Monday taking further action that will allow Louisiana to use a new map for the upcoming primaries. NTD's Melina Weisskopf joins us live. Good morning, Melina. Good to see you. First, tell us about the latest Supreme Court action.
Hey, good morning, Steph. So justices on Monday released an additional procedural ruling that will allow their previous ruling on the Voting Rights Act to be effective immediately instead of waiting 32 days, as is usual with rulings like this.
So the context here is that Louisiana was there was a push for a map that would add a second black majority district to Louisiana, which conformed to the previous rules of the Voting Rights Act. It was the case against it was brought to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court in response gutted the Voting Rights Act, meaning that Louisiana no longer needed to have that second black majority district. And then in an incredibly rare move, the Supreme Court also, in addition, said, oh, by the way, you can fast track that map change. Like, you can actually just not wait 30 days. You can go right ahead and immediately blitz to get rid of that second black majority district to implement the new map with less black representation. You can just get that done immediately. The Supreme Court almost never does this. Under any other court, they would be forced to wait until after the midterms to draw a new map.
Justice has not done this, Steph. Louisiana might have been forced to use the old map that was just deemed unconstitutional, but this change that the justices made led to heated back and forth, specifically between Justice Samuel Alito and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Alito wrote that because the election is so close, prompt action by the court was warranted, and then Justice Jackson dissented that the court is not content to have decided the law. She says it now takes steps to influence its implementation. Then Alito responded to this dissent pretty much saying that the court can't avoid taking action when needed simply because some might accuse it of being partisan. Alito called such accusations unjustified. Now, this comes, of course, after the governor in Louisiana delayed the primary election to give legislators more time to draw that new map that will comply with the law. Legislators have already started that process of redrawing their lines, and a vote is possible to approve that map by next week. Democrats in Louisiana, remember, could lose 2 seats under the map that's still in the works right now, Steph.
Yeah, Melina.
42,000 votes have already been cast in Louisiana. Yep. It's crazy. The Supreme Court just like, yeah, not only can you like, again, I think if you had told somebody 10 years ago that this was going to happen, nobody would believe you. Nobody would believe the Supreme Court would gut the Voting Rights Act, which is, again, exactly what it's not like lefty hyperbole. They really did gut it to the ground. And then, in addition, say that it would be legal for the governor to toss out votes in an ongoing active election so that you could get that new, less black map out as quickly as possible. Like, it's unfathomable. No one would believe you. If you went back in time and said this would happen, even liberals would be like, come on. Come on. Come on. Like, nobody would, yeah. And you can't even challenge it? Nope, the high priests have decided. The elected for life, or the selected for life high priests have decided it. That's been John Roberts' main goal since Reagan, though it's crazy he's actually been able to achieve it. Yep, they're getting everything they want. What was the logic of the lifetime appointment? I think the founding fathers thought that men of some decency would remain the political crop rather than, like, illiterate, stupid, pedophile retard Zionists. I think the founding fathers had overly optimistic expectations about the general direction of the electorate and the politicians with regard to their, like, honesty, I suppose. Yeah, also everyone died at like 60 or 70.
So primary elections are happening in Indiana and Ohio today, 2 states where redistricting has become a top issue, and they're not the only places where new voting maps could have an impact this midterm season. Joining us this morning is CBS News Executive Director of Elections.
How about civil exams for candidates? I think we need civil exams for voters. I think that like I'm sorry, again, I know it might come across as hyperbolic, but I want you all to understand I'm being dead serious when I say that democracy has failed. Like, the set of rules that was built to bring about good outcomes is not bringing about good outcomes. The bad outcomes that we're getting are not brief temporal fluctuations. They're not within the range of expected decision making. These are genuinely nation and civilization ruining decisions that are continuing to compound and worsen an already broken system. The set of incentives that we have built simply don't work. You know, you can pretend they have, but if you do, you're delusional. Like at this point, we need to start talking about like fundamental restructuring of how we think about the democracy that we live in and the democracy we want to live in. And it's just not. That would require a constitutional convention and a constitutional amendment. Well, the formation of the United States of America didn't require the consent of the British king, did it? No, we do not need to be ruled by billionaire pedophiles for all time, forever. Eventually, this will snap, and we're man, every day we're getting closer to snapping, like the rubber band effect, you know. And we're gonna have to work on keeping this from happening again. We have to learn from Reconstruction, you know? What happened after the Civil War? We basically didn't do anything to restructure incentives within the South. And now, as a consequence, today, you know, Confederate apologia runs rampant, and the general political interests of the white majority in the South have remained largely unchanged since the pre-Civil War days, certainly with regard to, like, their animus towards Black Americans, immigrants, and so on. We know, like, what they want. They succeeded. The Confederacy succeeded in making the North more like them. The Confederacy succeeded. They made every rural American like them.
Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Good to see you.
How are you?
All right, so let's start with Louisiana. Explain that ruling from the Supreme Court on that landmark decision striking down the state's redrawn congressional map.
So the short answer to that, Vlad, is that Louisiana is going to end up redrawing its maps. And what I'm showing you here is the red and blue Republican voting districts and 2, in this case, Democratic voting districts. But this is as a result of the VRA ruling. And what that means, the background here is that since the Voting Rights Act, the court previously has interpreted that to mean that when states draw their districts, they can't do so in a way that, in the judgment of those, in the courts, that might dilute the voting power of minority voters, including these states. So with this court ruling now, Louisiana is going to go back and they're going to redraw these districts. And the net here could be that both of these are majority minority districts. Black voters here, this could go away. At least one of them could go away.
Also want to talk about Florida, right?
Yeah. If we don't do it through the amendment process, it'll be done after violent revolt in a new system. I just think that they need to ignore the rules. You can do that. Republicans do it all the time. The Supreme Court has decided on objectively unconstitutional. Like, the Supreme Court just gutted the Voting Rights Act for no reason. There's no real constitutional justification for it. They just did it. You can just ignore. You can just do it. Power is power. You know, if you have a mandate, that's it. That's all that really matters, as they've demonstrated. Like, you can accuse me of being a radical, but I genuinely think that what I'm describing right now is the only, like, it's not only the only thing we can do, it's the guaranteed to happen. It's literally guaranteed, because the direction we're being sent in right now is oblivion. And I do think there will be a pivot. We will turn away from oblivion at some point or another, but the rules are set up in such a way that the only way to avoid oblivion is to just not follow them. The rules have been structured in such a way as to guarantee that if we continue to follow them as is, the other side, the bad actors, will continue to guarantee oblivion until we decide we won't let them do that anymore. So it's really just a matter of, like, under what conditions you want it to happen. You know what I mean? You have to, if you think about it along more simple lines, we're really just looking for, like, where the breakpoint is going to be, right? Imagine you have a system wherein you produce enough food for everyone, but enough food is taken by the people at the top that many people starve. And as time goes on, more and more people are starving. Like, eventually, everyone will starve. Or the rules have to be changed. Well, the only one who can change the rules are the people on top. Okay, they're not going to change them. Then what do? I guess civilization's over. I guess like the grand experiment has led us to this point, but now there is a confluence of environmental and legal circumstances that make it impossible for us to continue beyond this point without breaking a rule, and we can't break rules, so obviously we all have to die. Like it's really just, where is the fracture point? And when is it going to fracture? That's it. The goal should be fixing democracy, though, not tearing it down more. Everything that I have said and everything that I've advocated for is born of a love of true democracy. It is, what we have right now is not meaningfully democracy. Democracy isn't just like a set of little bullet points you're supposed to fill out. It's not a checkbox. It's a representation of the will in a political system to represent the interests of the people who participate. It goes beyond. You can create a million little rules that technically tick the boxes, but in practice don't represent the interests of the people. Let me ask you, so I'm being serious, is it democracy if people vote time and time and time and time again to give away their political rights and to give more money to the police, to the military, because they're being told day in and day out by a combined media and political class that the world is getting more dangerous, crime is on the rise, and the only way for you and your family to remain safe is to do those things, when they are wrong, when they're lying, when the media and the political class are just lying. Like, the world is safer than it ever has been, crime is on the way down, you do not, in fact, need to give up your rights and your money to the police and military. If people then, because of that disinformation, vote consistently, time and time again, vote away their rights, vote in favor of more military and police spending, is that a democracy? Really, I mean it. Like, technically, yes, they are voting of their own free will for what they believe is in their best interests. Is it really a democracy? I guess my answer there is that no, it's not. Because it's violating the spirit of the democracy, you know? You can set up a Plato's cave and convince people to vote against their own interests easily if you control enough, if you're wealthy enough, if you're powerful enough, if you have enough friends. Is that really the limit of what a democracy can be? You're just giving the wealthy a set of tools and a big toolbox to manipulate your opinion until eventually you just agree with everything they want you to do anyway? That can't possibly be the end. That can't be how this all ends. Democracy is just like a failed experiment, the whole thing? I believe we can do better.
Same day that ruling came down, Governor Ron DeSantis also signed into a redrawing of the congressional map. What's the latest there?
So I'm going to show you this. Florida in context. You mentioned at the top Indiana and Ohio. Mm-hmm. This is notable because, yes, the Republicans could gain a seat, maybe a few more out of Ohio due to their redistricting. Indiana did not. And yes, as some politicos have reported, that's drawn the ire in some respects of the White House. Florida now is moving to redraw its districts and try to net the Republicans now maybe 3, maybe 4 seats. The issue here is that this, as apart from the Voting Rights Act...
A functioning democracy requires an educated population? Yeah, but we don't have one right now. Right now, the population and their preferences and their beliefs are being completely controlled by the ruling class. So, like, what do we do then? You know? You think you're going to be able to just, educate fascism out of the population in a generation or two? No, no, no. No, 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 no. Have to act a little bit faster than that. That's true, Masaigo, though it's worth noting that the UK has a radically different electoral system, and they are facing the exact same problem. In fact, they're farther along in the process. Germany's doing the same thing. France is doing the same thing. Everywhere across the West, every democracy is falling into the exact same set of patterns. At least every major one. Spain's more autonomous to an extent, though, we'll see how long that lasts. It's a long battle. Democratic backslide's a thing? Yeah, I just wish that people wouldn't think of democratic backslide as an incidental and unfortunate potential within a democratic system, and rather as the inevitable consequence of all democratic systems based on the current set of rules that we allow for them. Democratic backslide isn't just a part of the shaky path towards progress. Democratic backslide is potentially the permanent end of democracy as a global system of governance, the end of the era. Like, we didn't experience feudalism backslide. Feudalism ended. It stopped being a viable political system. Do you want more warm butt? Do you want to sit on the computer? Do you want the warm butt from the warm air from my PC while you fill my PC with cat hair?